Hey everyone, we have a new patch notes from October 13th for the PTR. This is the public test realm for Warcraft 3. This patch is slated to go live in October 19th, the week of October 19th of 2020. So it's imminent, we're about a week away, and this is the third and probably final iteration of the PTR notes. Then in next week, they're either going to keep the one that they have now, or based on feedback and further thinking and tinkering, going to make some final changes. And that's going to be the balance patch that we'll have for some time to come, most likely. So let's jump into it and see what's new, what's good, what's bad, and the reasons why. Here we go. Loktar, once again, thank you for all the amazing feedback you've given to us through this PTR. The online posts, streams, and videos have been extremely helpful. In today's new PTR builds, we're making a few adjustments to specifically help the human versus undead matchup. We're also reverting all previous changes to promote late game air. Although we want to increase the viability of all units, we feel with the current scope it would be too risky to release these changes into the live environment. We hope to revisit this after the current meta has settled down with the existing changes planned. Please remember that these changes are a work in progress and they are subject to change. And again, thank you for the continued feedback. October 13th, PTR changes. Human. Mountain King Thunderclap damage cap removed and damage reduced from 60, 115, 160 to 60, 100, 145. That's minus 15 here and minus 15 here. Developers note, while the damage cap of Thunderclap sounded good, we have seen counterintuitive play happening, such as mitigating the Mountain King's damage by surrounding him with more than 8 units. This indirectly increases mass ghouls and skeleton strategies, which was undesired. Damage caps can also lead to player frustrations. So there are several other damage caps, and there's even a healing cap in the game. Goblin Alchemist Healing Spray has a small cap. Carrion Swarm, Shockwave, Fire Breath. So there are other damage caps. There is precedent. But Thunderclap in particular, you can't really aim it, I guess. Fire Breath, Shockwave, Carrion Swarm, they're all aimable. So the player has a little bit more control over whether they want to hit a lot of units or a few. If you remember, I was testing these changes last week and I had the video on my YouTube channel as well, and I said it would be good for me to bring bonus peons into the fight to absorb some of the damage so that grunts and raiders take less damage. Now Orc doesn't have the most numerous armies surrounding a Mountain King usually, because Orc units are beefier, higher supply, and therefore you have fewer. But still, it would be a good play to bring peons. You are still taking more damage. You're still taking like damage on all your units, but that makes it better when there's a wider spread. It is essentially a Spirit Link without needing Spirit Link. So bringing peons makes heal scrolls more effective, as grunts take less damage, peons take more, but they all get healed the same by heal scroll, as heal scroll doesn't have a cap. That was a plan that I would have. Now they removed it again. They said it was unintuitive, counterintuitive. I'm glad that Thunderclap is still getting a little bit of a nerf. It's not affecting the movement slow and the attack speed slow, but it is a little bit less damage. I think it will help a lot as shamans get used against, like at the highest level of pro play. Orc versus human is slightly human favored, and shamans see a lot of play, as do headhunters. And that 15 damage less at level 3, and even at level 2, is going to be helpful to keep those shamans alive. So, like right now, this is like almost half of the life of a shaman. So it's 2 claps and they're practically dead. Okay, I think that's a pretty good change. It's true that it's less intuitive with the cap, though there is precedent for it, so I don't think that's a good reason to change it. But I think this would have been fine, and this is fine as well. I like that it's a baby step. I like that it doesn't affect level 1 clap, which is definitely not too strong. Level 2 and 3 clap are quite good. Okay, I think that's a good change. I approve of this change because, one, it's baby steps, and baby steps are good in an old game where so many things have been figured out already. And because so many of the extreme steps recently have been too much or have ruined some matchup or something. So good change, nerf something that needs nerfing, so seal of approval. Let's go to the next one. Castle research gold cost reduced from 360 to 320. So in my previous patch notes, I mentioned that human got all kinds of changes, but none were like really very fun or exciting for the human. Of course, balance matters, but anytime like one race gets shafted in some nodes, be it any race really, even when they don't get shafted, there's buff and nerf, but there's nothing fun to play with, something new and exciting, then you're thinking for the next several weeks or months, you're just thinking, well, my race is still good. Statistically, it's fine. I need to keep working on myself and not whine, but now, like, there's nothing new I can try out. No new possibilities have opened. Let's say if human was the best, which statistically it doesn't seem to be, but let's say if human was the best and they just get one nerf. Spellbreak is -2 armor, let's say if it was like that. Then when you play human, you feel a little dejected. So I think the mood of players matters too, because if anyone quits the game, if many people quit the game because it's not fun, then that doesn't help anyone because we have a smaller player base. So I think it's in our interest to have every player of every race feel satisfied enough to have fun things to work on, to have new things to work on. And this is kind of in that vein. This is nice. Castle's going to cost 40 gold less. And I was thinking about the value of gold. And they say, okay, we want to promote some one base options. What is the value of gold? You think how much gold goes into one food of unit? It's about 75 gold per food. A peasant is 75, a footman is 130, which is 65 gold per supply. A knight 240, which is about 60 gold per supply. So maybe the value of food is 60 gold per real unit that you have, and it's about 13 gold per available supply. A farm is 80 gold and gives 6 food. That's about 13 gold per available supply. So 40 gold is about 3 available supply. Right, it's 3/8 of a farm. But 40 gold is about half an active supply of unit. So how much benefit do you get from spending 40 gold less? Well, you can think of it in 2 ways. You can tech 4 seconds faster, as your rate of gold mining is 10 gold per second. 4 seconds faster tech. Or you can have 3 bonus food supply availability without using it. Or you can have 1 extra, you can have like half extra food of current active supply. So 40 gold isn't a lot. It's just a tiny change. Again, I do approve of this change because I think one base human doesn't get used enough against Night Elf and Undead, probably because it's not viable. This will help with it. Is it enough? I don't know. Will it only be used in a one base scenario? No. It's also going to help fast expand human that then speed tails all the way to tier 3. Is that a bad thing? I don't think necessarily so. Human, I think human has some of the greatest potential, but due to various changes recently, maybe they are not on top, at least internationally. You have Infi and TH, they did finish top 2 in that WGL, but they didn't face Undead. That remains a problem matchup. If Happy was there, it could have gone differently. It's not a huge buff that will like make them imbalanced, so I like it. Approval. Maybe lumber decrease would help more, but I think it's fine. I think on one base you don't have a lot of lumber issues actually. It's usually 2 base where you have lumber issues. So I feel like it's the right resource reduction as well. 1 sec. All right, let's go to the next step, Undead. In the last patches, many things have happened to Undeads and Cryptlords and Beetles. You had Cryptlord Beetles gained health, they gained a double split, mana reduction, then increase. Many things have changed. I'm not going to go through all of them now, but in the recent patch, they removed 10 movement speed from 280 to 270, which is something, but not a lot. And then they gave them back 50 health on level 2 and 3, roughly. That left people a little stumped, at least I was a little surprised, and I don't think I was the only one. Of course, opinions are going to be divided, but even before, like, beetles are still like getting used all the time, even despite the health nerf. Like in the current version of Warcraft 3, beetles have less HP than they plan to give them back in the PTR, which is slated for next week. But they still get used all the time against Orc and Human, and in Undead Mirror. So to remove 10 movement speed and then give them back the 50 or so health at level 2 or 3 left me a little surprised. I don't think it was the right play. I'm pleased to see actually that they're going to an in-between path. They're removing 30 health from a level 2 beetle, and they're removing 50 health from a level 3 beetle. I'm glad that they decided to roll it back at least partially. In fact, mostly. So good stuff. They felt the increased HP in beetles were warranted due to the reduced movement speed, as well as now needing to require burrow research for level 2 and 3 beetles to burrow, but they did feel like it was a bit too much. So I feel like they listened to feedback. I didn't check other content creators' feedback or reactions to the patch notes, so I don't know to what degree people mirrored my feelings on this. But I feel like my feedback that may have mirrored many others has been listened to, so I think that's a great thing. Let's see how it is. We don't want to make the Crypt Lord impossible to be used, because then you'll just go back to DK first only ever. Yeah? Dreadlord never really gained adoption at the pro play, even though at the average level ladder, Dreadlord Expand was a common strategy. Cryptlord Expand took that over at the mid-level play before the top adopted it, and then the top also adopted it, and that's where we got the whole Cryptlord meta. So it's cool that it became possible, but it was overtuned, and I think everything has been addressed. They are a little slower, they can't insta-burrow anymore, and they have less health. You still have the double beetle creation and the better impale. I actually suspect that impale stun time on heroes is still too much in general. But we'll see. Let's play with this, I think, and then try it out and see how it is. All right. Cannibalize was no research requirement. Now it requires it again. That's good. I think myself and others pointed out that Cannibalize not requiring research would not lead to the desired result of mass ghoul strategies, but that it would just enable fast expand first and foremost, and help the undead fast tech. So it's good, a good rollback. Now, Cannibalize move to Necropolis is an interesting one. They felt that moving Cannibalize to the Necropolis could help promote variety in undead builds, while still giving a player a choice on what they want to invest into. I'm a little skeptical of this. So far, I've approved every change that they have shown. I don't think that this will have the desired effect, and here's why. An undead that does the Tet Fiend or Happy fast tech never has Necropolis idle time. They go Necropolis, double Acolyte production, then they make a 6th Acolyte for scouting, they make their Altar, Crypt, Shop, Ziggurat, and then eventually Graveyard. They tech to tier 2. There's never really gold available to get Cannibalized from the Necropolis, nor is there production time at a time where they would need it. Tech finishes at 4:55 game time. You then go immediately to tier 3. You could say that the best thing Undead has at tier 2 is their upgrade availability to tier 3. They don't really spend a lot of time there typically. So you'll never have Cannibalize available there. Crypt does not have much downtime, but it still has more than the Necropolis. Also, if you're doing Undead Fiend fast tech, you don't need Cannibalize. If it's free, it's probably too good, but you don't buy it when you have 3 ghouls. So I don't think this does the desired effect. I think Fiend fast tech never gets it if they have to pay for it. Fast expansion doesn't want to spend cannibalized time on the crypt and does have it for the necropolis. So I guess fast expansion can use it on the necropolis, also because they often make a second necropolis. They do have to make 10 acolytes for 2 bases, and then they tech their main necropolis, but they often have a second, and they could make it there. More so than on the crypt. So I will say that this enables an undead ghoulish fast expand more than if you left it on the crypt. So I guess it's not too bad. I disagree that it's going to promote variety in undead builds, I think. I don't think it really achieves that result. I think people that don't like fast expand still won't, like Happy. People that do like it, like Side and Craft, still will. They will get a small advantage there. I don't think it really promotes variety. I don't think a 4-5 minute cannibalize on a necropolis instead of on a crypt is going to make or break the strategy. I don't think this is a terrible change, but I don't think it's a very helpful one either. I mean, you could put it on the graveyard, which is even more idle than the necropolis. Cannibalize on graveyard. But ultimately, the main issue is that cannibalize is not a make or break strategy for mass ghouls. It's not how well do ghouls heal out of combat. It's how well do ghouls survive from full life in real combat. That's the main issue. Ghouls are pretty good until heroes get high level and until people get their tier 2.5 or tier 3. The reason people don't play mass ghouls usually is because heroes own them. They have a very small health pool of, I believe, 320 or 340. And they don't have Elune's Grace like archers, which is spell damage reduction. Arguably, they need it even more because they're melee. Archers can get shockwave chain lightninged, but they're range 700. Ghouls are range 100. So they get stomped, lightning shielded, chain lightning, thunderclapped, fan of knives, more than archers, but they don't have magic resist. The reason ghouls were so good in Reign of Chaos is because they took anti-magic shell from banshees, which was a common strat. Anti-magic shell actually functioned like the night elf anti-magic potion to make them unattackable by any spells. They couldn't get slowed or stunned. So it was better than the current anti-magic shell, which just blocks, like on the Banshee, which just blocks damage, but they still get slowed. Should ghouls get magic resistance or damage reduction like Elune's Grace? I don't know. Like, not at tier 1 or 2. Should they at tier 3? Maybe. Maybe that would be good. I don't know. If you want to buff the ghouls, they need a tier 3 upgrade that isn't just movement speed and attack damage, but some form of survivability. We all know that melee in this game gets hit by far more things than ranged. That's why fiends and headhunters and that's why they get so much better, because they don't get hit by everything. And ghouls are just really low health. Their damage is good, but they just don't stay alive long enough. Cannibalize won't help in a fight. It will help after a fight. So I guess I'm kind of neutral on this. I don't think it's a great move. I don't think it's a terrible move. Kind of neutral. It won't achieve what they intend, I think. You could put it on the graveyard. Gargoyle Prioritize is still active, despite some criticism. I personally feel like it's okay. I think pros already prioritize with micro, and I think newbies will benefit a lot from this. Now flying machines need the same treatment, and siege engines. Flying machine and siege engine literally don't want to get bombs and barrage, respectively, because you could send 10 siege engines on attack move to an enemy tree of life, and because they run into one chimera, they all start using their 6 target anti-split piercing damage that's supposed to deal with large swarms of units on a single chimera. And they just get held up forever. So you need to be able to turn that off too then, if Gargs get it. Probably. Unless you think, no, siege engines are so easy to use already. Just micro better. Because you can micro beyond that as well. There's no reason that they should be send and forget units. You can just right click next to a tree and then shift click attack move. Then you'll ignore any chimera you meet on the way. You can't expect a pro to hide behind, but I can't micro one extra action. So I don't know. I'm kind of of two minds by it. I feel like pros shouldn't need any of these tricks for Siege Engine, Flying, or Garg. This is really a discussion for the intermediate player. Skeleton Warrior, Skeletal Mage, level change from 1 to 2. This one really rocks my socks off. I feel like 12 XP is a respectable amount already. I already go out of my way to kill as many skellies as I can. Feral Spirits from Farseer give 20. They used to give 30. Now they give 20. And Skeletons give 12. Skeletons deal more damage than Feral Spirits, 14 to 15. Feral Spirits do 11 to 12, I believe. And yeah, 11 to 12. And then the health on a wolf is 250 and a skeleton is 180. So what skeletons lack in health, they gain in damage compared to a wolf. And the fact that one costs mana and the other costs gold, let's forget that for a second. But this is their stats, and it's almost the same, a skeleton warrior and a wolf. For some situations you prefer one, for some you prefer the other. So the fact that they're similar, but the skeleton gives 8 less XP, you might say, because of that, hey, they should be on the same footing, XP. Not something I ever recommended, by the way. But I can see the reasoning. Their strength is relatively the same. And in fact, I think 150 gold is cheaper than 300 mana, which is what you need to get 8 summons of both. So the skeletons already have a great deal. It's a good deal, 12 Here's the problem. This also affects necromancers. I think everyone can agree that while Necro is probably not the most useless unit in the game, that's probably getting more than one Doctor. One Doctor is really good, 2 is bad. Maybe a Demolisher, maybe the Frostworm. He's really good in 4 and 4, by the way, Frostworm, but in 1 and 1. Hippo Rider. I mean, there's a bunch of units that don't see a lot of play. Necromancers are one of them, and this will make them completely unviable, I believe. If you give 20 XP. I mean, you already mass level up from dispelling skeletons, and this is crazy. Like, do you ever want to see necromancers get used with Raised Dead? Maybe we should just delete that ability. For necromancers, this is a bad change. There's an easy fix. Necromancer summons can be 12 XP. You call them Raised Skeletal Warrior. You give them a different unit type. Raised Skeletal Mage. And then you've got the Rod, which is called Rod Skeletal Warrior. And Rod, no, there's no mage in the Rod. It's a really easy fix. It already exists. The Black Arrow from Dark Minion on Dark Ranger is called Dark Minion. Dark Minion level 2, Dark Minion level 3. And they have different stats because of it. You don't need to balance them together. It's a really heavy-handed, unuseful, inefficient way of doing things. So let's separate and say this should not be active for Necromancer no matter what. Let's separate that away and focus specifically on the Rod of Necromancy. Right now, Rod of Necromancy is what enables Undead to fast stack as fast as they are. And we must always keep in mind, is Undead overperforming? Or is Undead balanced and we feel Rod of Necromancy is overperforming? And if it is, then you must buff something else. So this change will have a big impact on every matchup. If Undead is overperforming, this is a great way to nerf them. This will force Undeads to walk away their skeletons when they get to 40% life, rather than to let them die and get the full use out of it. Just like orcs with Feral Spirit have to keep running away their spirits when they're at 40% life, or resummon when they're at 10%, Undeads will now need to micro them away, and they'll take far bigger penalties at every part in the game. Undeads that creep with 4 skeletons and let each drop to 1% life, keep them around for damage and make creeps retarget to another unit. Those skeletons, if you show up with a Farseer, a Blade Master, an Archmage, a Demon Hunter, you got easy pickings for last hits on everything. That is a lot of bonus experience that will change the pace of the game. So this is a big global nerf to Undead in every way you can think of. It's part of every single strategy. I know of only 2 players that willingly don't pick up Rod of Necromancy. Edo Boy and TGW. They sometimes play without shop. But that's a very special style that has some benefits, but mostly drawbacks. It saves them a bit of money, but really it's super out of the box, and mostly it's not competitively viable. They're not the top Undead players of the race. This would be a huge global nerf. That would be a way to do it. If Undead is roughly or almost balanced, or doesn't need a global nerf because there's only one matchup that's a problem, not the other two, if that's the case, then this shouldn't happen. There are other things you can do. It has never happened yet, but it can be done. You can make them level 1.5. Make them give 16 XP. There's no precedent for this in Warcraft 3. And I don't know if there's any coding issues, but you could do that. Or you could just reduce their health by 10. Or reduce their damage, because I actually feel like their creeping speed, their ability to kill peasants, is also reliant on the 14 to 15 damage of a skeletal warrior. Again, separate them from necromancers. Necromancers do not need this nerf. It's only Rod. Instead of 14-15 damage on the skeletal warrior, it could be 13 to 14. Baby steps, 1 damage less. That's going to help a lot. Because normal damage is also 50% buffed against medium armor, which is what a peasant is. It will matter more on medium armor targets than on heavy armor targets, like the militia and the footmen. So that's something that could be done. I do think Undead win rate is good now. They are the number 1 race statistically according to the breakdown by Toxie on warcraft3.info. But these things, they're heavily influenced by who's playing tournaments, who's having an up shape, who's having a down shape. So even the best statistical analysis cannot tell the whole story. Yeah. So I'm not going to give a definitive judgment. I think this is heavy-handed, maybe, but I'm unclear whether exactly this would be the right play or not. They're saying it's going to help the undead human skeletal harass, but this is not a targeted feedback. This is not a targeted change based on one matchup. This will affect everything. Therefore, I feel like it's done in the wrong manner. Neutral. Now, this is an example of the exact opposite of what I just ended on here. Rain of Fire range decrease will exactly affect only one matchup. Rain of Fire gets used almost never. It is used in 2 situations that I know of at the pro play. And I'm not talking about my Zikard game from 2005 at BlizzCon where I did have Rain of Fire. That was a mistake. The Pit Lord Fire Rain gets used by Undead as a 3rd hero against the Human Fast expansion to siege towers and peasants. And it also occasionally got used by a Night Elf against human with like Demon, Panda, Pit Lord or something. You go Fire Breath, Rain of Fire. It has been used, but mostly we should consider the Pit Lord Rain of Fire only being used by Undead against human. Of course, this is a nerf to future potential arising strategies with Rain of Fire, but I wouldn't hold your breath because it's unhealthy to hold your breath for too long. If Undead is overperforming, there are no ifs about it, against human, I think this is a good targeted change. This is a perfect example. This is a perfect example of a change that only focuses on one matchup. This is the perfect wrong example, the perfect right example. So I do approve of this. Panda, Brewmaster, Breath of Fire, damage cap removed, and Breath of Fire initial damage per level reduced. Their reason is, while looking at Thunderclap, we realized that the inconsistency of damage cap is weird, so we felt we should change this as well. This is a bit strange and feels like they haven't considered every possible damage cap in the game. Healing Spray, Fire Breath, Shockwave, Carrion Swarm, Fan of Knives, and Thunderclap for 1 week on the PTR. If you're going for consistency, you haven't reached it yet. And now let's explain why not only is the logic not logical, because there are still oversights and damage caps available, but also why damage caps are a good thing. for some abilities. The bigger the radius of a spell, the more a damage cap could be considered, because the maximum potential for a spell to do damage to so many units goes up by a lot. Shockwave is a very large line of damage, and I guess they were afraid that in 4-on-4, if you get a high level Shockwave, let's say 2 TCs level 5, you could just wipe out 40 units in a line with 2 Shockwaves. They capped it, I believe, at 12 units to make sure that it doesn't get overpowered in certain situations. Shockwave is not a very powerful spell right now, so we're not even talking about it a lot, but maybe you could remove the damage cap there too. But that could also lead to issues. And I don't think it's necessary to achieve consistency. For what? Someone's OCD? Like, the game works as it works. If there is an illustrable problem, yes, but don't try to make everything the same, because that is pretty to an OCD programmer, in my opinion. Also, why specifically on Breath of Fire I think a damage cap removal is not good is because, unlike Thunderclap, it can hit air. And here's how air works. Air can clump up infinitely in one space before it splits. You could have 40 flying machines or 40 gargoyles occupying one space on the map, so that this Breath of Fire radius, a cone shape, might as well be infinitely big. Because this cone shape, love you guys, actually means that maybe you can only hit 13 units. Let's say you can only fit 13 units inside. Then you don't need a damage cap of 12. But because there's an infinite amount of units that can fit inside, it's this big. Yeah, that's, I think, the problem, because Panda Breath of Fire used to be the de facto counter to Gargs and flying machines. And Alchemist took the anti-air role a little bit more, but still, like, Panda's potency against air is strong. Removing 5 to 30 damage, but uncapping it, leads to a potential problem where in normal circumstances, where you use it against 5 peasants and a town hall, it gets worse. He's now worse as a second orc hero to punish a human fast expansion, which is by no means an easy gameplay. You see Panda win as often as you see it lose against the human fast expo, Farseer Panda. It's now weaker, 5 damage less. Why? For consistency reasons? Now Panda is less good. Like, I don't think anyone was saying Panda is too good, and he's now worse from level 1 onwards because of some kind of consistency reasons. Doesn't make sense to me. I think they should just revert this and accept that some things are different. And keep the cap, because it's dangerous against masked Gargs. Wand of the Wind Cyclone cooldown removed and charges reduced. This one confuses me a little bit, because Wand of the Wind has 3 charges at no cooldown, current patch. They put a 5-second cooldown so that you can't spam it on a hero or on a unit. The duration was also 5 seconds, as they said, so that meant that you could still consecutively cyclone a hero. Now they say we don't want them to be able to take out a specific hero for an extended period of time. You could just make the cooldown 7 seconds. Then the hero has 2 seconds in between every time to do something. But instead they say we remove the cooldown again, so you can still use it in rapid succession. The current version can do triple Abomination Cyclone. This version that they're saying will be able to do 2 immediately. And the in-between version, where there was a cooldown with 3 charges, you could do 1 Abom, wait 5 seconds, second Abom, wait 5 seconds, third Abom. The duration on heroes is 5.6, the cooldown was 5. So they could just do 6 or 7. So, I don't know, like, I think when you look at the drop table, Cyclone, Book of the Dead, Mana Stone, Health Stone, and Heal Ward, I think the best are Cyclone and Heal Ward. Then Book of the Dead, then Mana Stone, then Heal Stone. Even though all are good, and Heal Stone is very good too. The fact that they're going in a different direction and making 2 charges, I think it's fine. I don't know what they're basing this on, or who tested this. I guess I didn't. I feel like the cooldown was fine, this is fine. I think it's fine, 2 charges. It's a bit weird, but I guess I'll get used to it. I accept it either way. So now the air changes get reverted. They're saying we might do this again later. Here, we might do this again later. But for now, reverting all the air changes. I think that's probably good. Like I said in my last patch notes, air is the less interesting dimension of Warcraft 3 because there's no body blocks and surrounds, nor should there be, in my opinion. It's less micro heavy. It's less easy to watch. They should of course exist, but just making them cheaper was, first of all, it was heavy-handed in its unevenness. This is not equal to this. This is not equal to this. And not every air unit is equally versatile, and not every air unit is equally versatile. And viable. So, I'm glad they changed this back. Next up, repair time reverted back up by 5 seconds. And just to kind of get the full continuity understanding of where it is at and where it has been, I'll tell you guys what it was. Just have to load in to a page which is a bit slow. So the current repair time, I'll load into that, but let's go on for a sec. Repair time reverted back up. This means they made it quicker to repair these 4 towers, a lot quicker, to help with defending fast expansion, which I think is a bad change.
Greetings,
because
friend.
you can also tower rush with them and also fast expansion. Why should they be allowed fast expo every time? Why not try to promote one base play? Let expansions be a privilege that every race has to fight for. Like, yeah, it was to help them against human and elf. Against undead, I mean. Human against undead. But it will also affect every matchup. I just want to see exactly where it's at. Because someone summarized the patch notes. Okay. Someone summarized the patch notes, but it didn't include that. So I guess that's it. Yeah, not too strong of a feelings on the towers. But I agree that tower rush are a potential concern. At this point, I'm just eager to start practicing all of these, to start trying out all of these on a live ladder. Except, of course, the ones that were ill-advised. Well, that's my PTR notes preview. They may make one more round of changes as it goes live, or not. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.